Hi, this is my review of the Lenovo X1 Yoga Gen 6. This review will go over comparisons with some older models of the Lenovo X1 Yoga. It'll talk about the physical aspects of this particular unit and some of my general thoughts on using the device. It won't go over detailed performance benchmarks of the processor, the disk, or the memory. If you want to get those kind of details, look up many other reviews that talk about what an i5 and what a storage device can do and things like that. I should also add, this is my personal device that I paid for. I wasn't given this device by Lenovo or anyone else. And all the other devices you see in this review are ones that I have access to via my work, where we've been using the Lenovo X1 Yogas for 5.5 years now. So please enjoy this review. It's the first one I've done of this style, so there may be some rough edits in it. Thanks. Recently, I did a video about how to replace the SSD NVMe in an X1 Yoga 6. Since I posted that video, a bunch of people asked me to do a review of the Yoga 6 because apparently nobody else has done a review of the Yoga 6. I will say up front, I am not a reviewer. I've just worked with technology for 30 years, the last 20 in schools. I work and help students and teachers use technology. So I will start with a simple unboxing. This isn't a real unboxing because I already took it out, but just so people can see, some people like to see that. So quick here, this is the X1 Yoga 6 box. It looks the same as Lenovo boxes have for the last, I don't know, however many years. So we open this up. It comes with a little your foam insert. We'll toss that over to the side. And it comes with a pretty box. I've been getting X1 Yogas since Gen 1. I'll talk about that in a minute. And they had a butterfly box and all this stuff. There's a little container for your accessories. In the US, most of them, they only come with the USB-C power supply. In some parts of the world, they come with a USB-C Ethernet adapter. If you're in one of those parts of the world, lucky you, you get it for free. Instead of me, I have to pay 30 bucks for it. So we'll put this off to the side. And you open up the little pretty box that comes inside there, and there's your X1 Yoga. Now, when I really got this out the first time, it had plastic wrap around it and all that fancy stuff. But, I took this out a week or two ago and have been using it since then, so that's not here. So one of the things people asked to do is compare this to other X1 Yogas. So luckily, I have every generation of X1 Yoga. So here we are. This is an X1 Yoga Gen 1 at the bottom, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here I'll place the X1 Yoga Gen 6 on top. This is a quick edit. In reviewing the first take of this video, I realized I had showed the size comparison off screen. I didn't have the camera quite positioned right, so I'm going to put this back in again. So I'm going to hold these up so you can see the height, or the width difference, I should say, between the Gen 4 and Gen 5 and the Gen 6. It's about, I guess, half an inch difference that way. So that you can see how that works out. So back to the regular video now. And just a tiny bit taller. You can see here the Gen 5 on the bottom and the Gen 6 on the top. There's just it's like almost the bevel keeps going. So it's a tiny bit taller, but it is narrower. If you look at the ports on a Gen 5, so the Gen 5 here is on the bottom. Gen 5 had the docking port, just like the Gen 4. They've now removed the docking port, which was also the Ethernet port, if you use the Ethernet dongle, and got down to just having the two Thunderbolt. Now it's a Thunderbolt 4 instead of a Thunderbolt 3. You have the USB and the HDMI. The headphone jack was on this on the left side on the Gen 4 and Gen 5. You'll see if I spin this around, the headphone jack has moved over to the other side. You'll also notice the USB port is moved and the exhaust port is no longer there. The power button has moved as well. We'll talk about that in a little bit. It has the all aluminum case, just like the Gen 4 and Gen 5. I believe it was the Gen 4 where there was some cases. If you bought, I think the LTE modem, you didn't get the aluminum base plate. I don't know if that's still the case with the Gen 6, but there you are. And I'll just for comparison's sake, I'll hold it up next to a Gen 3. the Gen 3 through Gen 1 through Gen 3 are basically the same size. If I hold them up, you can see, the Gen 1's down here. It has the 1-link port and the old power supply. Gen 2, it had more USB ports. And the power button has moved a little bit through the years, but not much. You can see the Gen 1 didn't have the Ethernet port. The Gen 2 and 3 do. That was yet a different Ethernet dongle, but everything else is basically the same. So, but again, if you have a Gen 1 through Gen 3 and you wanted to see what a Gen 6 looks like next to it, you can see here it's narrower, it's even shorter. So even though these were 14-inch displays in both of them, the 14-inch, the overall case is smaller in here. The other edit I wanted to put in is looking at the vents. So I mentioned on the Gen 4 and 5, you used to have the vents over here on the side. The vents have now been moved back to the back panel again, which is very similar to the way it was in the Gen 1 through 3. So in the Gen 1 through 3, the vents were here on the back as well. So in the in Gen 4 5, they moved them over here to the side, and then with Gen 6, they moved them back to the back with Gen 1 through 3. The other thing I'll mention, if you're somebody who had a Gen 1 through 3 and you're looking to upgrade to a Gen 6, and this is one thing that so many people don't even know existed, but the Gen 1 through 3 had an SD card and SIM slot that was back here on the panel, which was the weirdest thing to access. That was taken away with the Gen 4 and 5. There's no longer an SD card reader. If you get an LTE, they add a port on the side. I think it's actually over on this side to put the SIM in, but there's no longer an SD card reader. So that's something that if you have a Gen 1 through 3 and you're looking at getting a Gen 6, you won't have an SD card reader anymore. However, like I said, almost nobody knew that this SD card reader existed here. I'd be willing to bet there's lots of people who own Gen 1 through 3s and don't even know they have an SD card reader. So back to the regular video now. I'll open them up side by side just for a second here, and you can see there's far more bezel around the Gen 3 than there was around the Gen 5. And there, it just logged me in. I'll talk about hello in just a minute. So we'll close this up. On the Gen 1 through Gen 5, you had the fingerprint reader down here on the side next to the arrow keys. The fingerprint reader has moved to the power button, and I'll cover that in just a second. So let's close this one down, and we'll swap over to the Gen 5. Again, the Gen 5 and the Gen 4 are almost identical. Depending on which Gen 4 you got, it has even the exact same processor in it. So here's the Gen 5. You can see the thumbprint or the fingerprint reader had moved over to here. They're basically the same place. And so there we have that one. One of the questions I've also gotten is about the keyboard. So, the keyboard is definitely different between the Gen 4 and the Gen 5. There's a little less key travel. The keys don't have the height to them as the Gen 4 did. I'll open up a Gen 3 here just to show. I think the Gen 3 was the last one that had, so the Gen 3 did the thing where the keys recessed, Gen 1 through 3. The Gen 4, 5, 6 don't do that. So, you don't have the keys going down. But you can see these keys are definitely higher than the Gen 6. So, in the Gen 6, these keys, let's just open up Notepad here, and we'll just, these keys, they do have less key travel to them than other ones do. So, so the keyboard is definitely different than they were on the Gen 4 and Gen 5. Another change that people have talked about is you have the speakers here on the side instead of the speaker up here at the top. I haven't done enough with this. This isn't my primary machine to see how the sound works with it. The camera has the shutoff switch, which everything since the Gen 3 has had. They didn't have that in the Gen 2 and 1. The touchpad is a little bit larger. It's not hugely different. I mean, if you put them here side by side, you can see there's just a little bit more height to it and maybe a little bit more width. I mean, it's not a huge difference, but it's very similar. You still have the eraser head in the center to use, and you can still flip it around, and it flips over the screen just fine. The stylus is in the same location it's been essentially since Gen 1. It's the same stylus. The only difference is it's got the gray piece on it instead of a black piece, but I've swapped them between Gen 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. The one thing I will say is the hinge on here is smoother, I guess I'll say. It takes less force. Hopefully that doesn't mean it gets wobblier. On the Gen 4, 5, it's definitely more pressure to move the screen up and down. The one thing I will talk about here, and I'll talk about a little bit more later, is that the storage. Be careful which storage you're getting. This unit the X1 Yoga Gen 6 can support a PCIe 4.0 drive, which goes up to about 7,000 megabytes a second. However, the majority, and as far as I know, all the ones currently in the US are shipping with Gen 3 drives in it. This one that I bought came with a Gen 3 drive in it, but I replaced it with a Gen 4 drive. And I'll talk about at the very end of the video where the options for this and where you can look them up. But it seems like in the US currently, they're not selling Gen 4 drives for some reason. I'm sure they will once they open up the CTO or build your own option. But there you go. Some other, the keyboard has the same keys between the Gen 4 and Gen 6. I don't think so they've changed some of the icons, like the pictures above them, but the functionality is still the same. Like the airplane is now the airplane mode is there, and it used to be Wi-Fi turn off. It's the same basic idea. So the keyboard definitely has less travel than the older models. I don't think it's bad, but if you want more key travel with your keys, this may not be the perfect one for you. Let me take this one off screen for 1 second. I'm just going to log in. So let that log in for just a second here. What else is on this one? So it does have the fingerprint reader in the power button. Excuse me. I actually haven't set it up, so we can do that real quick and see how quickly it works. So we'll go to sign in options and sign in with fingerprint, setup, get started. So I'm just touching it a bunch with my finger here. Okay, it wants me to try different angles, so we'll try that way, and we'll try that way, we'll try that way, try that way. Okay, so there it's all set. So let's test it real quick. So we will lock the thing here, and so it's automatically logging me in with hello. So I'm gonna unlock it one more time, and I'm gonna turn off the camera so it can't log me in with hello, and we're gonna try the finger. So there, the finger logged me right back in. So I would say, the fingerprint reader and the hello camera work really well on here. We've been using Surface Pros with the hello camera since 2016, and it's just gotten better through those years. So that's definitely an option. I think every X1 Yoga Gen 6 comes with the fingerprint reader. The IR hello camera is an option, so you may not always get that, but you should always get the fingerprint reader, and so that's a good backup there. As I talked in my last video, it's very easy to swap the SSD in here. There's just 5 screws, drop the panel off, and you're good to go. This is the, I got the 4K matte screen. It definitely has less reflectivity than the older screens. The screens are kind of a hard thing to review because there's, I think now 5 different screens you can get with blue light emissions, anti-glare, full HD or 4K. So, you know, it's hard to say which one is going to be the one you get and which one you like. But I'll say the matte one is definitely less reflective than the Gen 4, Gen 5 ones. It has an 11th gen Core i5 or Core i7 in it. You know, again, you can choose that. You can get 8, 16, or 32 gigs of RAM. And the last part of the video, I'll just talk about some of the options you can get with it. You know, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them. The last part of the video, I wanted to talk about what options you have available to you when getting a Lenovo X1 Yoga Gen 6. Right now, I'm on the sales page for the Yoga on Lenovo's site. I'm looking at the US version. There's definitely different versions depending on where you are in the world. This one right here is the particular model I bought. It came with the 14-inch screen with a UHD, 16 gigs of RAM, and a 512 PCIe SSD. As of this recording, there still isn't the option to build your own. There's only pre-built options. So those of you who want, you know, a 256 gig hard drive with 32 gigs of RAM, you're going to have to wait or try to find it out there. The other thing I wanted to share, and I'll put these links in the notes at the bottom of the video, is the PSRef. And this is where you can see pretty much all the various versions of a particular machine that is available from Lenovo. The tricky part is there's different versions depending on where you are in the world. So you can filter it down by country or by region. I usually do it by country because that's pretty accurate. I guess those of you in Europe might be able to get a couple different versions depending on where you are. But the thing I wanted to call out is, yes, you can get 8, 16, or 32 gigs of RAM. You can also get, you can see here, there are 6 different storage things. And this is where I wanted to note, you have to be careful as to which storage you're getting, because there's a lot more, unless it says PCIe 4, it is not a PCIe 4.0 drive. So the drive that I got was this one here, which is not a PCIe 4.0 drive. And there are 3 versions that are PCIe 4.0 and 3 versions that are PCIe 3.0. And then further, with the screen, there's 4 different screen options, and there's many other options as far as, do you get the IR camera or not? So you know, those things go along with that. So, but one of the things I wanted to bring up about the storage is, if we go in here and we filter it down to, let's just say, the 2 terabyte PCIe 4.0 drive, you hit filter. You'll see there's one model, and that model is only available in Taiwan. So right now, if you want to get a 2 terabyte drive, you can only buy it in Taiwan, and it comes with the 32 gigabyte drive and the full HD screen. So, you know, when you pick some of these options, you're really going to be severely limiting your choices as far as that goes. So let's just, for argument's sake, we'll pick the other 4.0 drives. We'll pick the 1 terabyte and 512. And when we filter that down and go back over to the country, you'll see that United States is not even there. So currently today in the United States, you cannot buy an X1 Yoga Gen 6 with a PCIe 4.0 drive. Hopefully that will change, or you'll have a build to own option, build to your choice option soon. But just be careful when you're buying, you're getting what you really think you're getting. I hope everyone has enjoyed this review, and tell me what you want to know more in the comments. Thanks.